Hi folks, you're with Tassus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, what am I going to talk about? I've crossed my list off here. The West is not failing. Politicians. Okay. Well, got my little list here. I've been crossing them off. Which one was I up to? This is, I do these talks, by the way, without notes or even bullet points to prompt me. This is all off the top of my head. So just sort of segueing in off the business with James O'Keefe and Project Veritas, the harassment that he's suffering at the hands of the federal Justice Department and the FBI and so on. This is something you wouldn't think they'd buy into. And increasingly we're seeing that the pro-globalist parties and the pro-globalist entities are using the justice system to protect them from accountability, but also to go and pursue those they don't like, or those that are asking questions, or those that are pushing back against the globalist project. Now, James O'Keefe, in my view, is doing some very good work, and so you can see how they'd want to go after him. Now, the issue is, should the organs of federal government, which are meant to be impartial arbiters of justice, they're now, nothing more than political fucking hacks that are going after political enemies. So the whole thing's been politicized, and it's very sad to see that. But the globalists need it. They can't put the globalist project in place, or it'll take them a lot longer. It'll be more difficult for them unless they just brush aside all this nonsense with due legal process and the rule of law and so on, and impartiality. That's just got to go. They've got a globalist project to enforce. It's ideological, and they don't give a flying fuck about the collateral damage that comes from doing what they're doing, because they're pursuing the vision of this bullshit vision of a nirvana. But anyway, this is so. I just want to explain how the punishment is the process works. Now, this is quite Kafkaesque, as in Franz Kafka, and you should maybe have a look at some of his works, because he describes this rather well. He was talking about the final days of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and how it had become an incredible bureaucracy that was trying to sort of keep the peace between all the different nationalities in that empire, and all the strange ways they had of stopping people who didn't quite go along with it all. But anyway, just this idea of the process being the punishment. What the government does is they'll accuse you of something that you haven't really done. Very, very circumstantial, very vague accusation. They'll say somehow you're related to something else that's more important. But the entire machinery of justice will come. You'll be served with subpoenas. They'll do it in the most public fashion. They'll stand out, for example, they'll stand out the front of your house, and the summons server will scream at the top of his voice to your neighbours, and everyone in the street can hear, John Smith, I've got a warrant here, that type of stuff. They'll do that. Then they can follow up by breaking your door down in dawn raids that the media get tipped off on, or that are done so publicly that every one of your neighbours and friends knows that you had a police raid, and your problem to explain it. So they'll do that. So they'll create maximum embarrassment for you. But at that point, you have to respond legally. This is no longer administrative. You didn't get a nice letter and you respond with a nice letter. It's nothing like that. They've upped the ante, and the matter's going to be heard in court. And so they then drag you in for like what's known as a directions hearing, where you talk about the evidence they've got and so on. They magically are unable to disclose the key evidence they've got. Something's lost, or we can't find it. It's somewhere. So that'll be so there'll be multiple directions hearings. Now they've got endless funds. All these people are on the government payroll. The government's going to pay them anyway, whether they sit there and do nothing or come and harass you. So it's not really much of an extra expense for them to go and harass you. That money's kind of already budgeted for anyway. but you've got an expense, so you've got to hire a lawyer. And you've got to, maybe the lawyer that does the office doesn't do the representing in the courts. Often the case, you get specialised court lawyers, so you can be up for some pretty serious money. So there's your time, there's the stress, there's again the public humiliation of being served summonses and the like in a most public way, getting doors kicked down and so on. Now, and if the police or the agents misbehave, you then have to launch a separate legal action through that. And again, more expense, more time. So they drag you through some of these multiple directions hearings, which are usually very junior magistrates handling it or judges handling it. So, but they last. You can spend hours in court. You can arrive at 9 o'clock, and it can be 3 p.m. before your case gets heard. But your lawyer has to sit there for that whole time. You're paying for all that. Maybe you're two lawyers doing your paperwork, the lawyer that's representing you, they're both there. You've got to pay for that. You can be up for a few $1,000s just for them sitting around while you're waiting for a slot to go into the court. Now, most of the judges that are going to hear it will be activists. They personally want you to be waiting in the court for as long as possible, just so you can sweat, just to make you sweat, but also to make you pay up as much as you can to your lawyers, because they're bleeding you dry now. So this is where the process is the punishment. You have to go through all this stress, all this waiting, all this money, and so then you get in front of the judge, and there's arguments going back and forth as to what evidence is permissible. The other side, the people harassing you, say, "Oh, we haven't quite got all the evidence yet. We're waiting on something from somewhere else. Can we have another session, Your Honour? All right, when would you like that?" There's quibbling over the dates. Yeah, okay. Then they'll change the dates, even though they've agreed to something's happened. I came down 6 is the government lawyer, so they'll drag that out again. Maybe you've already arrived in court, and then their lawyer sends a message, the other government's lawyer sends a message saying, "No, sick today," or "My kids are sick," or this or that, or something's happened. So you've then had another chunk of money preparing and having the lawyers in the courtroom. Maybe you've brought some witnesses and that sort of thing. So they're complaining now that their time's being wasted, and they're asking, "Hey, can you cover my cost for this? Because it's the second day I've taken off now. The boss isn't going to pay me." You've got all that going on. So the process that they drag you through is the punishment. So you're being worn down every step of the way. So when it finally comes to a court hearing, the big decision, there's all sorts of vague bullshit evidence coming in. There's a witness that they're going to bring. No, the court's going to have to wait until the afternoon for the witness. Now, if it's the other way around and you want them to wait, that's not on. The judge is an activist judge. The judge's job is to help them squeeze you. Again, part of the process. The judge is there to squeeze you for as much as possible, to make life as difficult for you as possible. Now, you could have run up, legal bills, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 bucks before you even get to this point. And bear in mind, there's no clear charge. There's nothing, you've committed this or that crime. There's just vague generalizations of it. So when it gets to the day, the judge says, "Oh, well, I don't think we can really make a decision on this, or there's not enough evidence. Do you want more time?" It says to the government to get your case together. "Oh, yeah, well, there is a witness we're trying to get, but we just can't find him. We think he might be overseas." So then there's another one, another stay, and more delays. Now, when it gets to the end, they've got nothing on you. There's nothing. So the judge says, "Look, you've got nothing against Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones or whoever. So I'm finishing this now, and that's it." But each one can pay their own costs. Now, the government doesn't have any costs. Again, all of these people they're using are on payroll anyway. No great shakes for them, but you've had to pay it all, and you can be out of pocket $60,000-$70,000 now. So even though nothing happens, you've committed no crime, nothing's recorded against you. You've got a shitload of stress. You've got the embarrassment of dealing with all your neighbours that know you got raided, and you tell them, "Oh no, it was nothing. It was this guy." "Oh, nothing, was it, Billy Bob?" "Yeah, okay. Well, if you say so, Billy Bob." "Yeah, all right then." They don't really believe that. Why would the police do this? The honest and why did the Department of Justice go to these? You must have done something wrong to justify it. And they don't understand the political nature of how things are in the West now if you talk against the globalist project. So that's how the process becomes punishment. That's how they do it. Now you might walk away from that out of pocket $70,000, $80,000. Maybe you can afford it, maybe not. Maybe you had to get another mortgage on your house. So and then maybe somebody leaks to your employer that, oh, did you know that Billy Bob was in court and on very serious charges? Well, what is it, Billy Bob? No, we can't have the company's reputation brought in. Billy Bob, we're going to have to let you go. We're concerned about this. We wish you all the best in the future, Billy Bob. But so now you got the extra costs, the mortgage, you got to pay that. So just through this sort of harassment, even though you've committed no crime, just through this form of soft harassment, they can turn your life upside down into a total misery. So that's where the process, being the punishment, comes in. Now, if you're extremely well off, or you can get easy access to crowdfunding or something like that, it might be different. The government is less likely to take on the very rich people, I've seen what happens if the government fancies themselves as getting tough with rich people. Then some of the very best lawyers in the whole nation are available to rich people, and a battery of them. I was in court once when one of the Australia's premier court litigation lawyers walked in, and there was like a hushed reverence when this guy walks in, and whoever can afford him. I mean, he's like, $2,000 an hour or something. So you'd have to be fairly well off to afford this guy. But the judges call him sir. That's how it works. So if you've got the big money, then fine, you can play. You can play in the tall weeds like that, but otherwise, it's the process is punishment. It can very much make your life an absolute misery for as long as they want to. And again, it's not really a cost for them. They've got that cost on the payroll anyway, and they can just direct people to go get you and go after you and make your life miserable. And don't sell them short. They've got ways of doing that, and they've had plenty of practice at it. So that's a bit of an explanation as to how that works and how much it goes on. But increasingly, not only the local police, but law enforcement authorities, judicial, the justice departments of justice across the Western world, and so on, are all being directed at assisting the enforcement of the globalist project. And that means shutting down people like the James O'Keefes and others, and harassing them in whatever bullshit they can make up. And if there was a free and independent media, then they probably couldn't do it. They'd be howled. The attorney generals, these people will be howled down, will be harassed mercilessly by independent journalists going after them for this outrageous behaviour. But there is no independent media, or 95% of it's not independent. So they can go and do this stuff and not only not be accountable, but get cheered on because the globalists also own the media. You've been with Tastos today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.